Hi, just a quick video to cover some thing that I may have covered in the recent previous video, and I made another video on about UFOs, connecting it to the safe and effective experiment, but we could be seeing either the second or the third stage of the safe and effective experiment on a global scale, because I basically looked at the obvious, and that is, when you're looking, I'm talking about the ET abduction psyop, taking the paranormal element, non-human element, supernatural out of it, and assuming that many of these are just the government intelligence services, military, whatever you want to call them, taking innocent civilians and experimenting on them with chipping and injections. Again, what are we facing? Again, if I didn't mention it in previous, well, I mentioned it in a couple of previous videos, but what are we facing today in 2020, from 2020 to now, is injections and chips, right? So that was happening. If you look at the so-called alien abduction encounters, that happened in the 80s, especially. From my knowledge and memory of reading about this, it was really the 1980s and then 90s as well, where lots of this was going on. Again, I think the 90s was at the time the X-Files came in, wasn't it? And I think it could be something to do with it as well, to encourage this idea that it's an ET threat. But I'm basically suggesting that there was already a test run done with the safe and effective technologies, possibly from maybe from the 1960s, but let's say possibly the 70s and definitely the 80s, on a global scale on civilians. And I think perhaps maybe first it's done on the military population. I'm talking Black Project kind of super soldier stuff, right? Maybe it's done on them for a different reason, like to make them smarter, stronger, or something like that, to enhance them. I don't know. And then it's done on the surface population, on people with names, people who are known, but they probably like to pick people that are quite secluded and stuff like that. But they do test them, and I'm suggesting that maybe I'm talking maybe more than hundreds of thousands, maybe a million or millions of people on a global scale have already had the safe and effective from periods within the 1980s. Because if you read stories, I remember on these so-called alien abductions, is they're chipped and they're injected, and they fall ill a lot, and their energies just crashes. They're not the same person. They're always getting sick. They're always bedridden. On top of the visions and seeing the UFOs everywhere and stuff like that. So one of them could be the chipping in the brains and the bodies, just to see if they could have their wireless communication, memory implants, voice to skull, and all that stuff. The other one is the safe and effective. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create, as I mentioned in a previous video, the second inorganic immune system, and they're looking for subjects' reactions to it. Who reacts more positively to it? Whose body doesn't reject it? They may be taking blood samples of people. Is there a blood group that's better? And when I read up on these abductions, people, I think, got cancers. Some died. Cancer was quite common, but then sometimes they would have this massive recovery from the cancer, almost miraculous, and they were told the aliens have healed them. But maybe it's the safe and effective technology working on them, and the second immune system, the inorganic one, has actually corrected what it made. You know what I mean? Think how valuable the data would be like that to intelligence services. You know, it does make sense. And so maybe, you know, if that was the second run, the third one is okay. We'll unleash it on the whole world openly. Well, there may be another psyop, another lie, but maybe a bit more honest or something like we have in 2020. And this is the third stage now to unleash it on the whole world, because I just thought of this as well. I was watching, you probably may have seen it, an interview ages ago, in the 90s actually, with a guy, Barry King. I probably mentioned it before anyway, with Miles Johnson in bases, and he was this guy. This was in the 90s, and he was saying he worked in this underground research facility, which was basically transhuman stuff, and then they were making these things that were organic artificial intelligence kind of humanoids that would be part of the abductions, who make the subject believe that they're really being abducted by ET aliens. But he was chipped and he was used. So in the interview he said, you know, like, what's the agenda here? Because I mean, how many people are being, you know, intruded upon and being experimented upon on a global scale? And he said, yeah, it's a global phenomenon. This is been happening for years. I know that for a fact, because, you know, he was part of it. And many people from around the world, you're talking lots, he was saying, you know, maybe millions. But I think he was asked, what's the game plan here with all of this? And they say, well, they want to change everyone. They want to transhumanize everyone. This is on the cards. They want to chip everyone. They want to inject everyone. They want to do, you know, basically the whole human race is one big experiment to them, and they want to change and enhance them. And so maybe this, what we're seeing with the safe and effectively, because you have to understand the Rona was just an excuse. I mean, the proteins in there, we are assuming it was from the Rona crown protein, but they're telling us that, and it could be. But this is just one example of that technology, right? I've probably used too many obvious words. I don't want to say certain, you know, buzzwords that might get me banned, but what the hell. I've never really been banned much anyway, so I must be doing something wrong. But where was I? Yeah, so they were talking about safe and effective technology for the big C, you know, safe and effective technology for potentially other, you know, illnesses. So this could be what Barry King was talking about, and others like him. You know, I'm using him as an example because he's so-called been abducted, he's had military interactions and everything. I think they could be, back then, they could have had, it's not just, you know, the paranormal ability, the mental ability, certain, you know, things within IQ as well that they're after, because they want to combine, you know, a kind of enhanced artificial AI mind, don't they, with, it seems anyway, you know, with Elon Musk talking about the chips and stuff, and the cloud and all of that, singularity. But they want to combine an inorganic second immune system by that Jewish chap who's, you know, part of the Wefers, you know who I mean. He actually used that word. So if that's the case, then somebody like Barry King, he said he was a dog's body and a guinea pig. They used him as a guinea pig. So he could have had all of that treatment, but maybe they're looking at, as I was saying, at genetic profiles of people back then to say, I think that they could take everything and the kitchen sink when it comes to safe and effective experimentation, and, you know, they can take a licking and keep on ticking and functioning. And this is what that would be what they would want within a military aspect of it. I guess somebody whose body is hardy enough, but at the same time, it would still count for the surface population if they are expecting, or they know due to other, as I was saying, previous data studies done non-officially, that they know that there's a fallout, there's a drop off of lives with this type of enhancement technology. But and they know, so it is like survival of the robustest kind of thing when it comes to this kind of technology being tested. So we right now are facing what certain individuals secretly had faced, who had basically, sadly, possibly lost their minds or become very confused as to what is happening to them. But I'm not discarding the paranormal elements and the non-human alien intelligence element. I still think there's something to that. But if you look at somebody like Barry King, I do believe he's probably naturally psychic, but it's hard, it must be hard for them to completely see everything that was fact and what were lies in this big psychological operation that was unleashed upon them. You have to consider that as well. It's amazing. I mean, these, like Barry King, he's suffered heart attacks and problems. There's other stories of people having chips and injections. I mean, Whitley Strieber, or Strieber, the guy that talks about the grey aliens. I mean, he's been injected numbers of times, and they weren't always aliens in the room. They were, strangers, people, humans. So again, I can possibly include him in this. Yeah. So now we, it's almost like the alien ET psyop was attempted, or is being attempted globally as well. So we are we are living in sci-fi world now. That undercover story and people living private lives kind of in perhaps despair. I do feel sorry for them if they're innocent targets. The whole ET abduction thing with the military and stuff. They have been living that, under the surface, but now this has come into full bloom, and I think the world is a target now. We're all a target, perhaps, to, even if it's watered down, to people that went through this, many years back, a few decades back, and people who are potentially going through this again, because the agenda could be pushing forward. They may be way ahead. If people survive this stage of this transhuman agenda, then we've got another phase for them, an upgrade and stuff like that. That's maybe what's going on in the powers that be's crazy, twisted minds. I'll leave it at that anyway. This was just something I wanted to add, and it's just kind of taken itself elsewhere. But I'll leave it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care, cheers, bye.